They say a father's love is measured in the small things: packed lunches, bedtime stories, promises kept. But what happens when a father vanishes without a trace, leaving behind 3 children and a mystery buried 6 feet deep in concrete? October 14, 2019, a Tuesday morning like any other in Millbrook, Pennsylvania. Ben Hargrove kissed his wife Charlotte goodbye, ruffled his youngest daughter's hair, and drove to the construction site where he'd worked for the past 8 years. He was a foreman, reliable, steady, the kind of man who showed up 15 minutes early and stayed late to make sure the job was done right. By noon, he was gone. Charlotte didn't panic at first. Ben sometimes worked through lunch, especially when they were pouring concrete. But when 6 p.m. rolled around and his truck wasn't in the driveway, something cold settled in her chest. She called his cell, straight to voicemail. She called the site supervisor, a man named Howard Mitchell. Howard's voice was confused. "Charlotte, Ben left around 11:30 this morning, said he wasn't feeling well, told me he was heading home." But Ben never made it home. The police treated it like a missing person case, standard procedure, they said. They checked hospitals, interviewed co-workers, pulled phone records. Ben's truck was found 3 days later in a grocery store parking lot 15 miles from the construction site. Keys in the ignition, wallet on the dashboard, no blood, no struggle, no Ben. It was as if he'd simply evaporated. Charlotte held her family together the only way she knew how. She told her 3 daughters, Ava, 12, Mia, 9, and little Sophia, just 6, that Daddy was coming home. She had to believe it. The alternative was unthinkable. But weeks turned into months, and months turned into a year. The case went cold. The investigators moved on. Life, cruelly, continued. But Charlotte never stopped looking. She became obsessed with the construction site, driving past it at odd hours, studying the building that rose where her husband had last been seen. Something about it didn't sit right. A luxury apartment complex now stood where Ben had laid foundation. The concrete had been poured the very day he disappeared. 2 years passed. October 2021. The apartment complex was preparing for demolition. Structural issues, code violations, corners cut during construction. As the jackhammers tore through the foundation, a construction worker named Oliver Bennett noticed something odd embedded in the concrete. Something metal, worn, familiar. A tool belt. Ben's tool belt. The police were called. What they found next would crack the case wide open. Buried alongside the belt were Ben's work gloves, his hard hat, and his personal toolkit, each item marked with his initials BH in permanent marker. Charlotte had given him that marker set for his birthday. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. The concrete where Ben's tools were found had been poured on October 14, 2019, the exact day he vanished. The work order showed a last-minute addition to the pour, an expanded foundation section that hadn't been in the original blueprints. And the person who authorized that change? Howard Mitchell, the same man who claimed Ben had left work early that morning. Police obtained a warrant and brought Howard in for questioning. For 6 hours, he maintained his innocence. But when investigators mentioned they were bringing in ground-penetrating radar to scan the rest of the foundation, something in Howard broke. His lawyer advised silence. Howard spoke anyway. There had been an argument that morning. Ben had discovered financial irregularities. Howard had been skimming money from the project, using substandard materials, pocketing the difference. Tens of thousands of dollars over the course of months. Ben threatened to report him. Howard panicked. They fought. Ben fell, struck his head on a piece of rebar. Howard swore it was an accident, but what happened next was deliberate.
He hid Ben's body in the foundation trench, buried his tools separately to throw off suspicion, and ordered the concrete pour moved up. By evening, the evidence was sealed under thousands of pounds of concrete and steel. Ben Hargrove wasn't missing. He'd been there all along, beneath the very building his own hands had helped create. The demolition was halted. Recovery teams worked carefully, respectfully. On November 3, 2021, Charlotte finally got the answer she'd been searching for, and the closure she'd been dreading. Ben was brought home. Howard Mitchell was charged with manslaughter and tampering with evidence. He's currently serving a 25-year sentence. The construction company faced multiple lawsuits and eventually filed for bankruptcy. But for Charlotte, Ava, Mia, and Sophia, no amount of justice could fill the void Ben left behind. They visit his grave every Sunday. Sophia, now 8, leaves her drawings there, pictures of a father she barely remembers but will never forget. Sometimes the scariest mysteries aren't about monsters or the supernatural. They're about ordinary people making terrible choices in desperate moments, about how quickly a life can be erased and how hard some will fight to bury the truth. But here's what haunts me most about this case. How many other construction sites hold secrets beneath their foundations? How many missing persons cases could be solved if we looked down instead of around? If this story moved you, if it made you think about the people who vanish and the families who never stop searching, leave a comment below. Share this video. Let's keep their stories alive, because the moment we stop talking about them is the moment they truly disappear. And maybe, just maybe, someone watching this knows something about a different case, a different mystery. Sometimes the truth is just one voice away from finally breaking through.